Hi, welcome to Group 4's presentation. My name is Kaylee, and my group members are Han Yu and Yu Han. We have chosen the topic of microaggressions and how all of that individual's experience I'd like to be shaping of our own personal identity. In my previous workplace, there were two employees that did not get along with well. One of them was a man from a Western country, and the other a female from Malaysia. What is realized is that for the man, he rarely gave or allowed an opportunity for me to lead our team, even though all the members would prefer me to, given that he was given the priority to lead. And some members revolted against him. He resented against me because he thought I was the one who incited the members to do so. However, there was no doubt that his leadership style was autocratic and members did not like it. Therefore, I observed that whenever it was my turn to contribute to the team, he would easily shut me off and choose other member. It was so obvious that the other members realized that there was a problem between me and him. The second person, the lady from Malaysia, seemed to agree with the man and supported his approach not to allow me to lead a group. In one of our private conversations, she told, "But you are a woman. Can't you see you are going too far?" That came as a shock, because I did not expect her to be content with the fact that she was a woman. I believe that at a workplace, we should all be professional and excel based on our ability or not, based on gender and other related issues. However, when I finally led the group for the first time, we sped up the process. I experienced the coherence among the members. It also came about that the man started to change his attitude towards me and wanted to learn some things from me, especially on personal composure.
Hi everyone, I'm Yu Han Chen. So I'm going to show about my vignette. So working in a fashion and show exhibition company is quite exciting. I had the chance to work as an intern in a show exhibition company in Shanghai, where college girls were passionate and enthusiastic. They seemed tireless, and they were always ready to find and solve problems. Working with them felt like keeping fight until we could win a civil war. However, working in a show exhibition company also has a dark side. The extremely firm work environment means that people are free to do a lot of things that they may never have chance to do in other companies. Although I just worked for 2 months, I witnessed some dirty things that I could never imagine in other companies in China. I think this was more than people business in China. Like many companies in Shanghai, the show exhibition company was a place of cultural diversity and cross-cultural communication. We might meet people from all over the world every day. We might negotiate with a Chinese client who sat still and did not speak much. Alternatively, we might have a video conference with our colleagues in the United States, who often interrupted the meeting because the cut captured the bulk of the screen. A company cultural diversity was migrations in the company. I often heard some white colleges complain that the African-American colleges were lazy. I witnessed a college was slightly insulted on the butt because he was gay. As an Asia, I was sometimes played away the famous joke that I should be good at math.
I work in a team, 1 lady and 2 men. Yes, gender balance only is cruel. However, I am a Chinese and 2 team members come from a Western country. This would classify as yellow and then white. Away from digressing between the two team members. One is quite young and the other is older and looks composed and mature, and we got along quite well. However, young member was disrespectful. He seldom communicate, and for a few times he disrespected me from the face value. His rarity in talking to me engulfed for us in a social disconnection to an extent that he thought my ideas about assessment were not as good as his. However, I knew that I had read a lot on this and I had the contact to prove him wrong. Having this confidence, I did not bother to prove him wrong, and maybe I thought a time would come. Indeed, one day it happened. One thing I realized is that the older male member respected me, and quite often he consulted with me. Therefore, on one occasion, during our team discussion, we had the opportunity to present our ideas. The younger member started, then followed the older member. It thus came to my turn, and I relayed my points with keen interest to address the topic as objectively and content-rich as possible. The older male identified that my points and reference for discussion were better than the two of them. This turn of events led to eventually sanity in our discussion, restoration of respect, and increased frequency of communication. He who most often consulted with me, even after the group task we were handling. This has helped us to get along well, and the form of discrimination I experienced from the beginning no longer exists. Microaggression is a term used for commonplace daily verbal, behavioral, or environmental slights, whether intentional or unintentional, that communicate hostile or negative attitude towards segmentized or culturally marginalized groups. Second is gender. A person's sex, as determined by his or her biology, does not always correspond with their gender. Therefore, the terms sex and gender are not interchangeable. Gender is a term that refers to social or cultural distinctions associated with being male, female, or intersex. Third is sexuality. Refer to people's sexual interest in attraction to others, as well as their capacity to have erotic experience and responses. People's sexual orientation is their emotional and sexual attraction to particular sexes or genders, which often shape their sexuality. Third is thinking sociological. The areas of consideration are first seeing the gender in the particular, and second seeing the strange in the familiar, based on the genre in particular. Sociological imagination, which derives from the quality of mind, makes the possessor make constant shift between physiological and political perspectives. First is feminist. Applies in the workplace as a movement that seeks to end the subordination of women. It applies based on several sub-objectives, such as the shift from objectification, attainment of self-realize, empathy on individualism, choice, and the empowerment. Therefore, three post-feminist values are promoted, such as freedom of choice, equality of opportunity, and self-determination. Violence in the workplace. There is a sentimental violence that happens through themes of domination to mean that victims of the violence tend to accept it as the norm. There is also systematic violence, which is created by formal organizational structures. Thirdly, bullying in the workplace entails the process where dominant members in the workplace tends to victimize others physically, mentally, and psychologically. The main point is the social constructs of gender. According to Epstein, 2019, explained that gender in the workplace plays a significant role. The role entails how men and women treat and respect each other. Workplace roles and leadership, pay and remuneration. During our group meetings, gender was seen as a social construct through which we handled others. As such, both patriarchy and matriarchy played a big role. For instance, the young member's patriarchal background made him to believe that I, as a lady, deserve less of desired attention. As a man, his points were to be considered important that what I did. On the other hand, I practiced the matriarchy approach to the situation. Feminism was applied as a phenomenal approach to the extent that my political approach was used to end subordination of a woman. For instance, I had to find an opportunity to prove to him that I know better than him. In the end, it can be seen that the young man was proved wrong, and this leads to the certain of the respect and peace. In God, meritocracy applied, where the older male member who was not gendered understand and need to keep self-worth and respect for all irrespective of their gender according to the concept of meritocracy. The material reality of gender is ignored. What matters is the ability of a person to match up to the competency that is required to execute in the workplace. However, to attain this level, it is difficult because some people, based on their individualized constructs towards gender and other considerations, may continue to execute their gender biases towards to others. Meanwhile, from the group experience, as seemed inconvenient, dealing with the gendered issues, cultural issues, and individual biases in the workplace requires a pragmatic approach both from the victims and perpetrators. A mutual understanding is highly applicable, which emphasis on making sure that, regardless of the situation, things do not become personalized.
Migration is likely to be associated with gender, like sexual harassment and assault. Migration is inflected through patriarchy. Patriarchy refers to culture and social systems that appreciate men and masculinity more than women and femininity. Patriarchy exists in organizations. For example, there was a trend in my company that men were able to be managers than women, as the management teams of most companies had more male members than female members. A female colleague used to complain to me that she did not receive an equal payment compared to her male colleagues. I work harder and longer and have better performance than them, she said. The only reason why I do not get promoted is I am a woman. They feel ashamed of having a woman in the management team. As I mentioned before, migration was common in my company. For instance, treating people of color as foreigners is a form of alien in own land. One of my white colleagues asked an African American colleague where he came from and why he did not have an accent. Apparently, he knew that he and the African American colleague came from the same country, but he just could not help making such a little joke that did not make her guilty. In addition, migration can also make a difference in sexual minority groups. Although I did not exactly how many my male colleagues were gay, one thing I could ensure was that the percentage of gay in the fashion and show exhibition industry was above the average. Ray is a nice person. He was quite proud of his sexual orientation. He could be himself. He had a good relationship with many female colleagues because they could share the same secrets about men. However, the male colleagues were much less nice to him. They sometimes came to Ray closely and hit him on his butt and said, "How are you doing, young lady?" Ray did not seem to care about it, but I showed my empathy for him. I once asked whether he would be angry about this. He said he had to get used to it, attributing it to part of the cost of coming out. LGBTQ people are not welcomed by other communities, and they feel excluded from social activity that should be shared by all people. Since they belong to LGBTQ communities, the lack of chance to take into consideration another identity, which forms microaggressions.
The essence of feminism has come a long way to spearhead the role of women and cement their place in workplace and other ethos of social and economic constructs. Based on the experience from the male's colleague, he is a typical patriarch who still takes women as having their place in the workplace. Compared to the Malaysian lady, she seemed to have accepted this place, and that's why she tried to convince me to accept the treatment from the man. However, based on Leavitt's 2017, there is a shift from the objectification of women and the need to attain self-reliance. My approach through consistency to attaining the leadership role at the team when I saw that the team was not being led so well shows that I professed to the post-feminism ideology. Here, the promotion of values such as freedom of choice and equity in workplace is highly regarded. Besides, the essence of self-determination, which the other lady lacked. It's an important approach because it helps to gain respect from people regardless of their gender. Therefore, seeking equality of opportunity, as I did, is a show of gender equality, which is promoted by post-feminism, coupled with hegemonic patriarchy, which creates a masculinity ideal in the workplace. It shows that competition in the workplace is not a gender issue. Rather, it emanated from a mentor's approach to attaining positions in the workplace. It also deals with interpersonal competition through competency. The emergence of workplace violence has made that people suffer. Apart from creating a toxic work environment, it also can lead to people suffering traumas, getting demotivated, and leading to repulsive violence. Based on the experience of the male colleague, sentimental violence applied. According to Bourdieu 2004, this concept applies where the people have schemes of domination over others. It happens to an extent that the victims take as a norm. However, I did not buy this approach, even though the other lady felt that it was normal. His automatic leadership, which to an extent is an accepted form of organizational leadership, bore that the sentimental violence characteristic. Secondly, systematic violence is applied due to the understanding such types of leadership is created by formal organizational structure. As explained by Harrington, Varun, and Reiner 2013, this role is not to normalize the workplace with elements of violence that are hard to associate with gross misconduct. Lastly, workplace bullying was also observed, based on Wicker's 2007 study. Its application through physical, mental, or physiological characteristics tends to create a toxic work environment. However, my approach was non-violent, and I applied a professional way of addressing the core roots of the issue to prevent it from happening to other people.
In conclusion, we critically discuss microaggression, a concept related to daily verbal, nonverbal, behavioral, and environmental slights, insults and snubs that communicate derogatory, negative, and hostile attitudes towards marginalized or stigmatized groups. Migration can be common as it is associated with race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, age, mental illness, and intersectionality. Migration has negative impacts on people's physics and mental health. The concept is criticized for emotional trauma and over-interpretation. That's all. Thanks everyone to listen to our presentation. Thank you.